What's up, everyone, and welcome back to new release reactions here on Cinematic Views. I'm your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movie and TV. Every week, I break down and review the newest releases like Fast 10, beloved franchises, and even upcoming projects. You can support the show by hitting that follow button on your favorite podcast network, as well as following the show on all social media platforms. All of those handles can be found on either the Cinematic Reviews Facebook page or the show's website at podpage.com/cinemacviews. It helps out a lot, and I really do appreciate all the love and support out there from everyone. Today, we're headed to the Fast and Furious universe with my reaction to Fast 10. This is part one of a rumored trilogy that will end the main storyline of the franchise. I love revisiting this franchise every year, so I'm really excited about today's episode. But before we dive into Fast 10, let's head over to this week's new release report. Welcome back to another new release report over on Max. We have Succession, the fourth and final season going on right now. The last episode of the series will air this Sunday. All 9 previous episodes are out now on the streaming service, so check those out. Also, we have Barry, the fourth and final season going on as well. New episodes of that will drop on Sundays. Also, Love and Death, starring Elizabeth Olsen and Jesse Plemons, is going on now. This is a limited series that premieres new episodes every Thursdays. And then Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the most recent DCEU movie, will arrive on the streaming service May 23rd. Over on Paramount Plus, we have Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves streaming now. On Peacock, Inside, starring Willem Dafoe, is streaming now as well. Over on Netflix, the final season of Cobra Kai and Stranger Things is delayed due to the writer's strike. No word yet on when that will premiere. And then Fubar, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Monica Barbaro, arrives on the streaming service May 25th. On Prime Video, we have Jack Ryan Season 4 premiering June 30th. The first 3 seasons is out now, so get caught up on that. On Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso Season 3 is going on. New episodes of that arrive every Wednesday. Still, a Michael J. Fox movie is out now. And then Silo, starring Rebecca Ferguson, is also streaming. On Disney Plus, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is streaming now. Marvel Studios' Secret Invasion premieres June 21st. And then recently, last week I believe it was, after the new release reaction episodes that I put out, Loki was announced. Season 2 will premiere October 6th, and that'll be a weekly episode drop. And then the Echo series, all those episodes will actually drop on November 29th. And then in theaters, we have Fast 10 just came out this past weekend, and I'll get into my thoughts on that in a few moments. Also, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Book Club, The Next Chapter, the Super Mario Brothers movie, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and then Hypnotic, starring Ben Affleck. This is the newest Robert Rodriguez movie. Those are all out in theaters now. Then looking ahead, we have The Little Mermaid coming out later this week on May 26th, followed by Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse on June 2nd, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, June 9th, The Flash is coming out on June 16th, No Hard Feelings, starring Jennifer Lawrence. This is the newest R-rated comedy by the actress. This was coming out on June 23rd, as well Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. And then Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny will arrive in theaters on June 30th. Well, that is this week's new release report. Let's head over to Fast 10.
Punch it!
You know, we'd already be there if Roman wasn't driving Ford Knox on wheels.
You see me shining, baby? We're locked inside. It's a trap. That's a bomb. All right, dorks, what are we blowing up?
What? The Vatican? Wow, you guys are going to hell.
No! Get out of there!
The great Dom Toretto. If you never would have gotten behind that wheel, I'd never be the man I am today.
And now, I am the man who's going to break your family.
piece by piece.
The devil's coming.
Boom. Tommy, I knew you would come for me. So how about we all just start shooting each other? Time to end this.
Let's dig some graves.
You are not to be trusted.
Hey, you ain't on my Christmas list either.
Cavalry's here.
Cheers. We need weapons and cars.
Cannon cars.
Do you like surprises? I adore them.
I'd stay down if I was you.
You'll need to hit me harder for that.
The game's over, Dom. You lose. This is your last ride. Then we might want to buckle up.
Fast 10 was released in theaters on May 19th. It stars Vin Diesel returning as Dominic Toretto, Michelle Rodriguez as Letty, Jason Momoa as Dante Reyes, Jordana Brewster as Mia, and Charlize Theron as Cypher. The film was directed by Louis Leterrier, who is best known for The Transporter, 2010's Clash of the Titans, Now You See Me, and The Incredible Hulk. He took over the director's chair after Justin Lin stepped down a week after filming began. Rumored is that Justin Lin had conflicts with Vin Diesel on set. He, however, is still receiving credits for writing and producing the film. So far, this film has grossed about $267 million. Numbers are still pouring in from the weekend, but this is against the estimated $340 million budget. This is the most expensive installment of the franchise for sure. This is probably one of the most expensive movies that I have seen. $340 million is quite a large budget. I'm sure on top of that, there's about $150 million worth of advertising. So, I mean, we're looking at a good $450 to $500 million sunk into this film. So that is a crazy amount. It has a mountain to climb for sure to make back that money. Michelle Rodriguez and Charlize Theron filmed their fight sequence without a director. That's pretty impressive. The flight attendant who helps Jacob and little Brian on the plane is played by Paul Walker's daughter, Meadow. Of course, Paul Walker played Brian O'Connor in the series until his unfortunate passing during the filming of Furious 7. And then lastly, this film was said to be the first of two-part ending, but Vin Diesel has recently suggested that it could be a trilogy. This isn't an official confirmation. There is an official confirmation on the direction of the franchise right now. I guess it will all depend on how this movie is perceived in the box office and the critics. Unfortunately, the critics are basically annihilating this film right now, but I'm sure it's still going to make a ton of money because there's still love for this franchise. So time will only tell if this will be a two-parter or a trilogy. So for those who don't know, I'm a huge fan of the Fast and Furious franchise. I've been watching these movies since I was like 11 or 12. Fast 10, though, is not a good movie, even though I enjoyed the hell out of it, mostly because of all the nostalgia that was pumped into it. I mean, the opening of the movie is basically Fast 5, just redone a bit to include Jason Momoa's character, Dante Reyes, who is the villain of this installment and most likely Fast 11, and if there is Fast 12. Dante is the son of Hernan Reyes, the villain of Fast 5. You may remember him. The plot of the movie is basically centered around him. He wants revenge on Dom and the rest of the family for killing his dad. Fast 5. Pretty straightforward. I'm honestly not a fan of the choice to make Dante this silly psychopathic villain. He was essentially the Joker to Vin Diesel's Batman. Momoa, by any means, it would not make a good Joker. That's not what I'm saying. that's just the best comparison that I could come up with this movie. Um, he's nowhere near Luke Evans as Owen Shaw in Fast and Furious 6 or Charlize Theron's Cypher back in The Fate of the Furious when it comes to villains. Momoa is pretty sadistic in the movie, though. The scene where he's talking to the two dead bodies that he dressed up to look alive was creepy as hell. I mean, there were kids in the theater that I went to, and this was a pretty disturbing scene to watch. I'm not a fan of Momoa, so right away I knew I wasn't going to really vibe with his character. He's not the only villain, though. It turns out newcomer Ames was working with Momoa the whole time. He is played by Alan Ritchson. Most of you may know him as the new Jack Reacher in Amazon Prime's Reacher series. I've been a fan of his since he was in Smallville as Aquaman, which is funny because Jason Momoa is the current Aquaman for DC right now. I actually think Richardson was good in this movie. He's insanely jacked and total badass. I did, however, suspect that Richardson's character was working with the Reyes family because if you look closely at the during the Fast Five sequence at the beginning of the film, where Reyes goes into his office at the police station, you can kind of see the back of what looks like Richardson's head sitting down. So right away, my brain's like, oh, he's probably going to be part of this twist that will reveal him as working together with Momoa. Seems like Richardson is kind of taking over the agency, as they call it, with Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody kind of being MIA since F9. Not quite sure if Kurt Russell is going to come back. I think it would be really cool if he did come back. But for right now, we have this Ames character who's kind of just taking over the agency for him. It turns out that he wants to take down Dom and the family for all their past crimes, and lo and behold, he was, and this is all because he was working with Momoa, apparently. So we have a double team villain. I think this is kind of not really a trend. We haven't got very many like team up villains. This is probably the first big one where, well, I guess we did have that twist back in Fast and Furious 6 where Gina Carano's character, who was at the beginning of the film working with Dwayne Johnson's Luke Hobbs, turns out she was with Owen Shaw the whole time. But usually we only get like this one central villain. Now we kind of get Alan Ritchson and Jason Momoa teaming up, which I thought was an interesting choice. There were some other newcomers to the franchise as well, on top of Alan Ritchson. We have Brie Larson joining the family. She plays Tess, the daughter of Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody character. She was okay. I'm not a fan of hers either. She had a couple of badass scenes, but that's about it, pretty much. She was kind of a whatever character. We have Daniela Melchior. I totally butchered that name. Apologies. She plays Isabel, who is Elena's sister. If you remember, Elena was working with Dwayne Johnson in Fast Five, and then she became romantically involved with Dom in Fast and Furious 6, and then we saw her tragically die in Fate of the Furious. She is the mother of little Brian. Speaking of little Brian, we have a aged up little B this time, played by Leo Abello Perry. I believe if the timeline is right, he's about 9 or 10 in this. I got a huge kick out of him. He was really funny and adorable. Him and John Cena spend most of the movie together. The scene where Jacob and Little B are in John Cena's tricked out car with the cannons on the sides was pretty cool. Pete Davidson also joins the franchise, which is unfortunate. Not a fan of him either. He plays this black market dealer in London who Ramsey apparently knows from her past. Most of the family does return in this movie, which is awesome. Like I said, we have Michelle Rodriguez is back as Letty, who I absolutely love. Since the unfortunate passing of Paul Walker, she is my favorite character of the franchise right now. She gets into an awesome fight with Charlize Theron's Cypher at this black site in Antarctica. Before that, we get to see her tearing through the streets of Rome on a motorcycle, which was awesome. Chris Ludacris Bridges is back as Chej, another one of my favorites. He's still cracking jokes and being a smart ass, mostly towards Tyrese's character Roman, who is back once again. I love their back and forth in this franchise. This installment, though, didn't really give us anything new. They mostly argue over this kind of dried out joke about receipts because Roman is forced to lend the team money since Jason Momoa drained all of their accounts. Um, the writing definitely took a hit with this film, and I think their sort of back and forth, their banter, really was affected by it the most. Natalie Emmanuel returns as Ramsey, and she spends most of the movie with Tej and Roman on this fake mission orchestrated by apparently Jason Momoa. That's another thing that I noticed with this installment. Everyone gets split up pretty early on in the movie. We get the traditional barbecue scene at the beginning of the film, and that's about it. Everyone is split up into these small groups for the rest of the movie. I'm not a big fan of that choice either. I really love this franchise when when the team is together. I think that's why Fast and Furious 6 and Fast 5, and then also Furious 7, with all the struggles they had to go through, are probably the best that the franchise will ever be. And that's because of the the family element is huge in those three films. Jordana Brewster is back as Mia. She's mostly in these newer installments to remind the audience that Paul Walker's Brian is still alive behind the scenes. We do get to see her fight this time, which was cool. She can definitely hold her own. Although she does get help from her brother Jacob, who is played once again by John Cena, another actor that I'm not a huge fan of. He, however, bites the bullet in this installment, or more accurately, blows up when he sacrifices himself to give Vin Diesel a chance to save Little B from Jason Momoa at the end of the movie. I did not see that coming, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow survived that crash, though, because this franchise likes to resurrect characters a couple movies down the line. And speaking of resurrecting characters, Sung Kang returns as the lovable Han. He also spends most of this movie with Tej, Roman, and Ramsey on their little fake mission. They eventually end up at Jason Statham's door. That was a great moment to get these two characters together. If you remember, Jason Statham's character supposedly killed Han during Furious 7, but now that we know that it's fake, it was cool to kind of get this interaction after all that is revealed. Statham returns as Deckard Shaw. It's great seeing him again. I love him in this franchise. He has an awesome fight alongside Han against the agency soldiers in his little man cave that he has. When Han shows up to his place, he's punching this bag that has a man inside of it. That kind of cracked me up. I know it's a stupid scene, but I kind of chuckled a bit during that. Helen Mirren even pops up for a few scenes. She, of course, returns as Statham's mom, Queenie. Pretty much everyone comes back at some point in this one, except for Paul Walker, of course, who I said earlier that he tragically passed during the filming of Furious 7. That's the big thing I felt with this movie. You could really feel him missing in this one, probably because he's in the Fast Five footage that is shown at the beginning of the film. After that, the whole movie, I just sat there in the theater thinking, this would be so much better if Paul Walker is here. He left such a massive hole in this franchise when he passed, and these newer installments really show it. Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot even show up at the end of the movie. Gal Gadot played Giselle in the franchise. She was last seen in Fast and Furious 6, where she was killed during their final fight with Owen Shaw, or so we thought, because she's back and working with Cypher, apparently. That's one of my biggest issues with this franchise. Like I said, death basically means nothing with this franchise. The only one that is really dead is Vince, because, well, we saw him bleed out after being shot during Fast 5. And then we have, of course, Paul Walker, who they decided not to kill off, but instead kind of have him in the background living on through dialogue. Han, like I said, Han returned in F9, which I was not a fan of either, mostly because of the trailers spoiled it pretty early on. But it's, in my opinion, it's still a cheap move, even for this franchise that has become a ridiculous franchise. Now Gal Gadot is the latest victim of resurrection. Fast 11 will likely explain her return, though, through some movie bullshit that this franchise likes to do, similar to how Han's death was kind of half-assed writtenly explained. Dwayne Johnson returns as Luke Hobbs. I really didn't see that coming because, well, Dwayne has stated numerous and numerous times that he would not come back to this franchise whatsoever. Him and Vin Diesel had a huge falling out during the making of this franchise. Now I guess they buried the hatchet because he was in the mid-credit scene. Hobbs was the one that put the final bullets into Hernan Reyes at the end of Fast Five, so of course he's got to be on Dante's revenge list. Which means we will probably see Hobbs' daughter from Hobbs and Shaw show up in Fast 11, because as we saw, Dante loves to really use the family against Toretto. So I got to imagine that he is going to track down Dwayne Johnson's daughter and use him against him. So yeah, the family is back together again. Well, not exactly, because the movie, of course, ends on a huge cliffhanger, which I also saw coming because, well, it was announced that this was going to be part one of how many movies. We see Dom and Little B are left facing a possible explosion at a dam. I'm not sure if that will lead to anything. The plane that Tej, Roman, and Ramsey were on was shot down by Ames. Not sure if they survived, which they probably did. Then we have Letty and Cypher in Antarctica being rescued by Gal Gadot's character in the submarine from, I believe, Fate of the Furious. I'm sure we'll get, like I said, some explanation as to how she is alive. Then Statham also left the movie pretty early on. He went out on his own mission to find his mom after he realizes that she is being marked by Dante Reyes. I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Evans or Vanessa Kirby, who played Statham's sister in Hobbs and Shaw, teams up with him, to go find Helen Mirren. That would be pretty cool to see all three Shaw characters together. I kind of figured there would be, like I said, a cliffhanger of some sort, because it was announced that this was only going to be the beginning of the end. So, I went into this movie kind of expecting it to have some kind of weird cliffhanger, just not the way that they did it. I'm not the biggest fan on how they left this, because, well, it's kind of like, it's a bad example, but the best one I could think of is it's similar to the MCU where they had the snap at the end of Infinity War. And then, well, of course, you're like, well, they're going to make another movie. They're going to obviously save all these characters because, well, these are all the characters that have movies coming out or TV shows coming out. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot. This by no means is anywhere near the MCU. The MCU did it far better. But I just like to use that as a comparison, because it's the same feeling I had with this, where, well, obviously all these characters are going to survive. This cliffhanger is more or less just for entertainment purposes, I guess. Obviously, Dom and Little B are going to survive. You're not going to kill Vin Diesel off in his franchise. Tej, Roman, and Ramsey and Han are probably going to survive because, well, you can't kill them off either. The only question is with John Cena dead, who else is going to die? I honestly couldn't tell you, because for all we know, John Cena could come back in the next movie. I know a big question now is, when do they bring Paul Walker's character back? And a part of me wants to see them use the CGI technology that we have to bring him back. I believe his brothers have said that they will not come back as stand-ins. So after seeing that, I don't think Paul Walker will be coming back to this franchise, unfortunately. They would have to give the family's blessing, and I think Furious 7 really took a toll on them, bringing him back to life to kind of finish that movie. So I don't think he's coming back, but I gotta imagine someone's gonna die in this. Maybe they do kill off Vin Diesel. I don't know. It's hard to tell at this point, but I honestly hope it's only one movie. I don't think we need two more of these. Even though I love this franchise, these last couple movies have been pretty hard to watch quality wise. It's this franchise really took a hit when Paul Walker passed, and now with this writer's strike going on, and then a possible director's strike, I don't know. And it's nothing against Louis, but this franchise needs Justin Lin, and it's unfortunate that he had a falling out with Vin Diesel. Um, from what I understand, Vin Diesel is kind of wrestling this franchise and kind of taking over it. I'm curious to see how um, him and Dwayne kind of reconnect if Dwayne does come back for Fast 11. I just, it's a tough spot right now being a Fast and Furious fan because we, me personally, I love these movies to death. Like I said, I've been watching these since I was like 11, so I've lived with these for years. And now we're kind of at this point where I'm hoping for this just an ending. You know, we had a beginning with the Fast and the Furious back in 2001. Give the fans an ending so we can have this beginning to end story that we can just kind of rewatch over and over again. We don't need 20 of these, honestly. And I'll talk about this a little more. But yeah, I think this is just a real tough spot for the franchise. Now I want to take some time and talk about the stunts in this movie because along with the family element, this franchise is built on its ridiculous stunts. This time though, most of the stunts are repurposed stunts from past films. For example, I could think of maybe 4 or 5 and I wrote some of them down. So the first one that came to mind was Dom dropping out of the plane and crashing into 2 vehicles. This is obviously a reference to Furious 7, where we have the team jumping out of a plane in their cars because this was Roman's ridiculous idea of instead of coming at it from the other side of the roads, he goes, "What if we just come from the air?" And Vin Diesel kind of gets this idea of jumping out of the plane with their cars, and it was a pretty cool sequence in Furious 7. This one was pretty cool as well. It was not as crazy because we've seen it before, but there was a cool effect where Dom jumps out and his car crashes on these 2 vehicles and just demolishes them. Um, Another one is Dom versus Dante and his men on the highway. This whole sequence at the end, obviously, this is from Fast and Furious 6, where the team is fighting a tank driven by Owen Shaw and his men. So I just got huge flashbacks from the 6th movie watching that sequence. Then we have Dom Toretto spinning the helicopters that he crashed, and then basically shot for shot swinging these helicopters around and destroying Jason Momoa's car, exactly how he did it at the end of Fast 5 versus his father Hernan on the bridge in Rio. Then we have the bomb rolling through Rome. This is again another reference to Fast 5, where Brian and Toretto basically drive through the streets of Rio with this giant safe and just crashing into stuff. We also have Roman and Han crashing into the truck carrying the bomb to stop it from sliding. As I saw this truck sliding off this cliff, I got immediate flashback to Furious 7, where Brian is fighting off these Shaw's men, or not Shaw's men, Jaimin Hansu's men, in this kind of tactical bus, and it's sliding off this cliff, and Paul Walker has to like climb out of it and run along the side of it and jump off the cliff to where Letty catches him. Obviously, that was a reference to that scene. And then the last one I can think of off the top of my head is Little B jumping into Dom's car as they're kind of spinning on the highway. Of course, we saw this in Furious 7, where they did the trick of High Ramsey from Jaimin Hansu's character in 7th movie. We get the same exact thing where Momoa and Vin Diesel are spinning their cars around in a circle. He tells Little B to jump. You know, they open the doors and they jump across the car. We saw that in Furious 7, basically shot for shot. So, and I'm sure there's more of them. Those are just the ones that I can think of offhand. But part of me really, really liked it because I'm a big nostalgia guy. So seeing that, I was like, oh, that's from that movie. Oh, that's from that movie. But another part of me is like, okay, but we've seen this already. The thing that I love about these movies is that you guys keep redoing stunts. You keep giving fans these crazy stunts, you know, upping the antics. But they kind of, for this movie, they kind of just grabbed the stuff that we liked and kind of redid them, which I understand. understand that the nostalgia part of it, and I do like that. It's just I kind of look forward to new stunts in these movies, and this movie didn't really have. I can't even think of a new stunt that they did in this movie. Maybe the dam part where Vin Diesel and Little B are driving down a dam, trying to avoid this explosion. But I had a huge issue with that because we get that shot of the flame coming in the back of the car, and you see the NOS tank there. I'm like, and I even leaned over to my brother during that scene, like, that car should blow it up. It should have blown up. The NOS should have went off. But of course, this is Fast and Furious, and they are invincible apparently, like Roman tried to explain in F9. But yeah, it's really unfortunate that we didn't really get any new stunts. It was uh just repurposed ones. And I understand people's frustration with those stunts because I mean, it is frustrating, but I try not to see it that way. Uh I more so see it just paying homage to those movies because that's just how I am. I try to see the good in movies. I'm a sucker for nostalgia. If you're a fan of the show, you know that I am. So I'm more so forgiving of it. Uh, but like I said at the top of this episode, this isn't a good movie, but it's not as bad as people are saying it is. I won't name names, but there are a lot of negative reviews going around out there from people that aren't really fans of the franchise. One in particular is really up their own ass when it comes to this franchise. Um, Apparently, it's beneath them. I don't know what's going on with them. Uh, you do you, I guess, but don't go around slamming a movie just to get attention, especially if you're not a fan of the franchise. You're kind of being biased at that point. We're 11 movies into this franchise, so I mean, it's 10 in the main story, 11 if you do count Hobbs and Shaw, which I do. But at this point, you either like the franchise or you don't. These new movies are for fans of the franchise. It's aimed towards that nostalgia, aimed towards the diehard fans at this point. Supposedly, Han was brought back after fans started a campaign for his return. Rumor is that that's exactly what happened to Gal Gadot's Giselle. Sung Kang, who plays Han in the franchise, apparently rallied up the fans to campaign for her return like they did for him. I love Dwayne Johnson's Hobbs character, so it was great seeing him back in the mid-credits scene. Like I said, opening up the film with footage from Fast Five was also for the fans. It's all for the fans at this point. That's just where we're at right now with this franchise. Fans of these movies are the only ones that will appreciate this movie in particular the most. I watched Fast 5, F9, and Fast and Furious 6 before watching Fast 10 and before doing this episode. And it was the right decision on my part because it helped me enjoy the film more. Fast 5 is freaking incredible, and I love Fast and Furious 6. For a long, long time, it was my number one. Now I'm thinking Fast 5 is my favorite number one. F9, not so much, but there are great parts that I really, really enjoyed in it. Like all the stunts that was involved those magnets. That was really cool. I wasn't a fan of the decision that the franchise go to space in that one. I think that was a bit much, but it is what it is. But yeah, I love this franchise, and there's a ton of people that love this franchise, and there are people that will love this movie. Yeah, it's getting really bad critic reviews. It's getting negative review bombed right now, but it's still making a ton of money, and these movies will, because there is a diehard fan base that will go out and watch these movies like me. So in the end, this movie will make a ton of money. It will not be a fan favorite, but people will go see it because they love these characters. They love this universe. And that's the power of this franchise. So since I'm kind of stepping on my rankings of the Fast and Furious franchise, I'm just going to pull it up right now, and we're going to go over how I ranked all these movies. And since this is really the first time I've been able to talk about this franchise on the podcast, so I'm really, really excited about today to really, dive into how I rank these movies and why I love them. And then I'll also be ranking Fast 10 right here on the show. I haven't even thought about how I'm going to rank this because I wanted to save it for today's episode. So we're going to get a live ranking right now. So let me pull this list up here, and I will go over what the list looks like right now. I'm going off of IMDb, but you can also find it on Letterboxd. IMDb is just kind of my main list that I do now because I'm able to rank these movies with shows, especially when it comes to Marvel. But you can, of course, find it on Letterboxd as well, because I know there is a large group of people that love Letterboxd. So here is the list. I am going to start from the top and work my way down. So like I said, Fast 5 is my new number one. For a long, long time, it was Fast and Furious 6. But after rewatching these movies, I really love Fast 5. It's just truly, truly incredible. It's honestly one of the best action movies of not just that decade, but probably the last 20 years. It's just really, really awesome. Number 2, we have Furious 7. This is more of an emotional ranking. This is the one where Paul Walker unfortunately died during the filming of, so they kind of had to go back and restructure it. They had to get his brothers to stand in and use the CGI technology that they had to place Paul Walker's face on his brothers. Still an awesome action movie. One of the best of the series. It has the beautiful, beautiful send off for Paul Walker at the end. Crazy set pieces like Abu Dhabi and the fight with Statham and Vin Diesel during it. Just a really, really awesome movie. Then number 3, we have Fast and Furious 6, which I absolutely love. We get the awesome highway scene where Dom and the rest of the family have to fight this tank that's driven by Owen Shaw and his men. You get the crazy fight to take down this giant plane on this runway. Just really, really love this film. Number 4, we have The Fast and the Furious, the first film of the franchise. Still holds up today. I just watched it. Actually, I watched it a couple weeks ago. Freaking awesome. Love Vin Diesel in there. Love Paul Walker. Just really awesome to see that the franchise started from here. And really, this franchise was basically all about the racing. And then eventually, once they reached Fast 5, it kind of switched more over to the stunts. But the first film is a really awesome racing movie for sure. Then number 5, we have Fast and Furious, which is also the 4th film. Kind of when this came out, this was kind of like restructuring the franchise. It was kind of like breathing some life back into it. Because I remember when Tokyo Drift was out, and kind of a lot of people were kind of out on the franchise, so they kind of reinvented it and brought it back with this 4th film. It sees Vin Diesel and Paul Walker teaming up together since the first film. Awesome movie. Number 6, I have Too Fast, Too Furious. Definitely one of the lowest of the franchise, but I still kind of have it high because, I mean, Paul Walker is just really incredible in it. This is where we meet Roman, who's played by Tyrese Gibson, and then Ludacris plays Tej in there. We also get some Eva Mendes, who is great in there. I haven't watched it in about a year or so. I'm really looking forward to it, watching it again. But I remember it held up pretty well, even though it does. It's on the bottom of a lot of fans of rankings, but for mine, it's at number 6. Number 7 is The Fate and the Furious. This is the first film completely without Brian. Has its problems. There are some awesome moments. I do love the concept of Vin Diesel kind of turning on the family. It's funny because around this same time we had Transformers The Last Night, which saw Optimus Prime turning on the family. So I thought that was a pretty funny coincidence that we kind of got both of those around the same time. But this movie would have been a lot better if Paul Walker is in it. Every time I watch it, it hurts me because I'm like, this would have been freaking amazing if Paul Walker was in it and he was the one to kind of try to bring Dom back to the family. Since his passing, it was kind of more Letty. She kind of led this movie a lot. We also get introduced to Scott Eastwood's character, who I'm not a huge fan of. He plays, AKA the Little Nobody. the secondhand guide to Kurt Russell. But yeah, I just had a lot of issues with this, and that's why it's at number 7. Number 8, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. I haven't seen this in a year or so either, but it's a decent movie. It's definitely not my favorite. There are some cool parts, like it says it in the title. It's pretty much about drifting, which is really cool. Just not a huge Lucas Black fan. The villain DK is kind of menacing, but he's kind of a whatever villain. Mainly the reason why I love this is for the drifting aspect. It's really cool how they did all the drifting stunts, but that's really it for me. Number 9, Fast and the Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. In the theater, I loved it, but after rewatching it a couple times, it kind of dried out for me. I do love the chemistry between Statham and Dwayne. They have a funny back and forth, similar to Tej and Roman, but it's a little more aggressive than that. We get Idris Elba, who is this kind of cyborg-like villain, which is interesting. There are some cool action sequences in it, but it's mainly driven by the comedy beats from Dwayne and Statham's relationship. We also get some Vanessa Kirby in there. I believe Ryan Reynolds shows up at one point. Kevin Hart shows up in there, so they're kind of technically a part of the Fast and Furious franchise now. It's just kind of it was a weird installment to the franchise. I'll talk about that a little more when I discuss my thoughts on the future of the franchise, but it's definitely at the bottom for me. And then at number 10 is F9, The Fast Saga. Just I had a lot of issues with this movie. I mean, the magnet stuff was cool, but that's it. It's again, this movie is missing Paul Walker. It would have been so much better if he didn't tragically die. Not a fan of John Cena, who is supposedly the villain of this movie, but he ends up becoming part of the family because, well, he is Dom's brother. We get the return of Charlize Theron Cypher, who is awesome in this franchise. I love Charlize. She is great in this character. Just had a lot of problems. So that's why it's my least favorite of the franchise, even though, like I said, there are some good parts to it, like the magnet stuff, but I'm just not a huge fan of John Cena, for sure. So Fast 10. Where do I rank this? I think it's better than F9. So it's at least going to take the number 10 spot, pushing F9 to 11. Is it better than Hobbs and Shaw? It's tough. I don't think so. I think I enjoyed Hobbs and Shaw more for what it is. I did have a lot of problems with Fast 10, even though there were parts of it that I loved, like I said. I think I'm gonna put it above F9. I think F9 is still pretty bad, but I think Fast 10 is at least better than that one. So I'm just going to put Fast 10 in there as the new number 10, pushing F9 to 11, and then I will update Letterboxd as well. But for right now, you can find this complete list on IMDb. What would I rank this movie? Probably give it 2 stars, honestly. 2 stars out of 5. It's just, it's not great. Just I had a lot of issues with it. On IMDb, these are scored on 10 stars. Letterboxd is scored on 5 stars. So I try to go more towards the Letterboxd. 5 stars is a little easier for me to rank. So I'll give it 2 stars out of 5. IMDb, I have it marked 5 stars out of 10. Same for F9. So yeah, you can check out this list on there. We will return to this list when I do the Fast and Furious season, which is on the calendar for this year. So I will be breaking down all of these movies, except for Fast 10, since I already covered it on today's episode. So the first 9, and then Hobbs and Shaw as well. I'll be breaking down and reviewing during that season. So we will return to this. And then, of course, when Fast 11 and maybe Fast 12, if that does exist, come out, we will be doing a new release reaction episode on that as well. So with that, let's take a quick break, and then I will dive into what I think the future holds for this franchise. The Transformers season arrives later this week on the podcast. Every week, I'll be breaking down every film in the Transformers franchise, starting with the first film from Michael Bay. I'll also be reacting to The Rise of the Beasts on new release reactions after that arrives in theaters on June 9th. So check out the Transformers season every week, only on Cinematic Views. So I wrote down a couple questions that I wanted to cover over what the future brings for the Fast and Furious franchise. So the first one, what can we expect from Fast 11, and will there be a Fast 12? I hope there isn't a Fast 12. I hope it does end at Fast 11. I think Vin Diesel is trying to hold on to this franchise too tightly. I think it's kind of gotten out of hand with these last few movies. So I kind of hope that they do end it with Fast 11. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get the family back together for one last fight. I think that cliffhanger was kind of nonsense. Everyone is probably going to come back alive, except for John Cena's character, which I gotta imagine that they are just gonna keep him dead. I mean, we saw him blow up. There really isn't any way to fake that. Not like, well, I mean, they did it with Han. But I hope they don't. We've had enough resurrections because now we have Gal Gadot we have to worry about and how she survived her death in 6. So I think he's dead. I think Johnny Cena is like Vince. He's dead. We'll probably get this epic showdown between Momoa and Vin Diesel. Momoa is probably going to die. Not exactly sure how. I can't see him getting locked up in prison. I think after all he's done, he is just going to die. Similar to how they just killed off his father, Hernan, in 5. I wouldn't count on seeing Paul Walker. I know we have the technology, but I don't see it. I don't think my heart could take it if I saw him on screen like that. But yeah, I could see the Toretto family basically retiring in LA. Maybe we get some deaths. I don't think we will. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, anything's up in the air. I mean, Letty could die, Roman could die, Tej could die. I don't know if Vin Diesel will die. I mean, it's possible, but he's kind of the star of this franchise, so I can't really imagine them killing him off. But I guess we'll see. Like I keep saying, I love this franchise to death, but I honestly hope that it ends at Fast 11. We don't need a trilogy for a conclusion. We just need a part 1 and a part 2, and that's it. I know Dead Reckoning is doing that right now with the Mission Impossible franchise. We're just doing part 1, part 2, and that's it. I kind of hope this is in the same boat. We've been with this franchise since 2001. I think it's time to just shelve it. Give the fans a solid conclusion that we can enjoy and love, and then we can just rewatch these movies over and over again from start to finish. At least that's just what I want as a diehard fan. I want to be able to watch this as a complete story. I don't want 20 plus sequels and just drying out the name of it. Just give it a beginning and give it an end. That's all I want. Will there be a Hobbs and Shaw sequel? Now, this was a huge rumor when this movie came out. Dwayne was talking about this nonstop when Hobbs and Shaw came out back in like 2011, I think it was. Or was it 2000? I can't remember what the year was. 2019. Wow, I was way off on that. Yeah, 2019 is when that went out. So ever since then, he's always talked about doing that kind of side franchise, but with the way Hobbs and Shaw was received, I don't think it's really at the top of their list. I mean, it's possible that we could get a sequel to that one, but now that Dwayne showed up at the end of this installment, I think they would rather just incorporate him back into the main storyline instead of splitting him off, doing his own franchise. And speaking of splitting off, will there be more sequel or spin-offs like Hobbs and Shaw? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I hope they don't. Because like I said, Hobbs and Shaw was a pretty bad experiment gone wrong. It was just review bombed, and it just fans did not really embrace it the way that they wanted. I think fans are more interested in this main timeline, so I think they should just focus on this last movie and not do any spin-offs and just kind of leave the franchise behind. I mean, if they want to revisit the franchise in 10, 15 years down the road, go for it. But I think for right now, just focus on ending this main story and just shelve it for a while. We don't need 100 spin-offs. We don't need TV shows. We don't need sequels, a sequel to Hobbs and Shaw. We don't need to stretch out this conclusion to a trilogy. Just do Fast 11, call it good on the franchise, wait 10, 15 years, and then revisit it. You know, if you want to wait till Little B is in his 20s and then have him kind of be the center of the franchise, go for it. But I think for right now, the studio just needs to get Fast 11 made and just throw it out there and end the franchise for now. I think that's the best that they can do right now, and I think it'll pay off in the end. You know, just don't do what Marvel's doing, where they're 40 plus projects deep and fans are just annihilating it right now. I do not want the Fast and Furious franchise to turn into that. Unfortunately, it kind of already is now, but I think they can get ahead of it and just give audiences a epic conclusion to this franchise, and just, like I keep saying, shelve it for 10, 15 years and then revisit it if they want to. So that's just my thoughts on the future of the franchise. I'm curious to see what all you fans think. So hit me up on social media. I'll leave a question on here for the Spotify listeners. You can send in your answers to what you kind of hope for with the Fast 11 and then the future of this franchise. Well, that will do it for this week's Fast and Furious filled new release reactions episode. Tune in next time for my reaction to Disney's The Little Mermaid live action remake, which is set to be released in theaters on May 26. I'll also be giving my thoughts on Disney's obsession with remaking all of their beloved animated films on that episode as well. And then check out the Transformers season every week on the show. The first episode will drop later this week. Until then, always remember to live life a quarter mile at a time.